Good day, farmers. Welcome to Agribusiness Talk, the podcast with your farm business in mind. I'm your host, Rollings, and today we are going to discuss a special topic that can make or break your farm business. It is about soil testing and analysis. And joining me today is Felistas Mukuluchi from the ZFC. Felistas, welcome to Agribusiness Talk podcast.
Thank you, Rollins, and thank you for having us as ZFC.
Felistas, what is the importance of soil testing?
Okay, it's important for farmers to know that they cannot manage that which they have not measured. So the starting point, if you want to venture into the agriculture business, is that you should have your soils tested. It is important because you reduce cost. Why I say so? Because you'll be applying the right amount of fertilizer, no over application, no under application. And it's also important to the environment that you make sure you have applied the right amount so that no excess will seep into the environment and pollute the environment. So farmers should have their soils tested to have a better yield and do business well on their farms.
Please take us through the process of soil sampling, testing, and analysis.
Okay, so when the process of soil sampling, soil testing rather, it starts with the farmer because it is the farmer who brings the soil to us. And it is important for the farmer to know how they're going to take their samples so that they'll have the correct results. The starting point is that the farmer should make sure that we look for uniformity. So the land that you want to have tested or your field that you want to have tested should be uniform. If you have land that is not uniform, you make sure that you divide those portions into different sampling points. So when we are looking at uniformity, you just observe naturally, like your soil color. Is it uniform, your soil texture, even the slope of your land? If there is any difference, then you make sure you divide those into different sampling points. But if you have a uniform sampling point, you now have to make sure that you come up with a composite sample. What I mean by a composite sample is that you have to collect about a minimum of 10 samples from your area that needs to be tested. If you have a probe, you just drive it through the soil to a depth of about 20 to 30 centimeters, which is our plow layer. You collect that sample into a clean bucket. You do that for all the 10 samples in your sampling unit. That is, you drive through your probe into 20 to 30 centimeter depth and you put it in the same bucket for sampling. If you don't have a probe, you can use a hoe and a spade. You just dig a hole, a V-shaped hole, 20 to 30 centimeters deep, and then you slice through just a thin slice and you put it in a clean bucket. You do it for all the 10 sampling points in your field. And the way of sampling in one sampling unit, it depends. You can just do random sampling, whereby you just go at a certain point and then another point and then another point, or you can do it systematically. You can move diagonally across your field. You can move horizontal, like you can move in a V shape, or you can move in an X shape, whichever way is comfortable to you. But in that way, you just make sure you have to avoid the edges of the field. You make sure you avoid paths. You make sure you avoid where they are mounted, their NTUs. You make sure you avoid maybe where you sometimes mix your fertilizer so that you don't bring biased samples to the lab. So when you have collected those soil samples into a plastic bucket, you just make sure you mix them. And to the lab, you bring about 500 grams to a kg of soil. You label it with your name, the name of the field, and also the crops that you intend to do and your contact details. So when your samples are received, they are taken to the lab and they undergo through analysis. And when they are analyzed, you get your results, your interpretations, and the crop recommendations.
Say I have 10 hectares.
Yes.
And I want to do wheat, I want to do green mealies, in 5 hectares and the other 5 hectares green mealies. How many samples do you expect me to bring?
So would say max. We would say for 2 hectares. That's when we are saying it's a maximum that you can take to treat as one sample. But if you're 5 hectares, you're sure that they are uniform. Maybe if you look at your cropping history that you have been cropping that area and it's been giving you the same yield, there is no difference in the colors that I've mentioned, in the texture and in the slope, you can treat it as one sampling unit, but you'd increase your composite, your sampling points that give you a composite sample. Maybe you increase them to about 20 or 30 because you are now dealing with a larger area. So for it to be a true representative, we make sure that we sample out a lot, kind of like more sampling points, that we come up with a composite sample.
When it comes to labeling and the packaging, is there any special type of packaging or special type of labeling my samples?
Okay, it's very important that farmers should know that they should use clean packaging material. They should not use empty fertilizer bags because they'll bring a bias to their sample. They should not maybe use a sack that was used for collecting manure or anything that will give a bias to your sample. And when it comes to labeling, we just want something that can be seen by whoever is going to receive the sample. And you just make sure that you don't use maybe something that will fade, maybe an ink. Maybe if you are like transporting a moist soil, you just make sure you stick another sticker on the outside and then you put another one in the inside, so that if there is bias with any of the stickers, at least one of the sticker will survive.
What are we testing exactly?
Okay, so when you bring your soil samples, you would test your pH. Because for us we do nutrient analysis. You test your pH, you test your primary nutrients, that is your nitrogen, your potash, and your phosphorus. We also test your secondary elements, your calcium, your magnesium, and your sulfur. And then we also test trace elements, your zinc, your molybdenum, your manganese. Yes, those ones that are needed in smaller quantities. That's the analysis that we do.
You mentioned pH. Mm-hmm. How does pH affect my production?
Okay, so for most crops, we recommend a pH of 5.5 to 6.5. That's where most crops do well, like in terms of nutrient uptake and how they behave in the soil. So what happens is if your pH is too low, and when we talk of too low, that's when you hear terms like your pH is acidic, that it is below 5.5. Taking phosphorus, for example. If you have a pH that is less than 5.5, going to 4 or 3.5, aluminium and iron, they become more available and they attach to phosphorus, making it not available for plant uptake. So even if you come with your phosphorus containing fertilizers and apply to the soil, it won't be like uptaken by your crop. It won't be available for uptake because it is being held in chellets. And when also pH is above 7, it is alkaline. Your phosphorus also, when it comes to calcium becomes now more abundant and it attaches to phosphorus as well. And then no matter how much phosphorus fertilizers you put, they won't be utilized by your crop. So it is important for farmers to maintain that 5.5 to 6.5 pH range. And it is also important even when it comes to our the biology of our soil. When it comes to microorganisms, most of them, especially for nitrogen fixing bacteria, they do well in soils that have a range of 5.5 to 6.5. When it becomes more acidic, they won't be able to fix nitrogen. So it's important that farmers get their soil tested and give that when they are told the remedies, they should actually adjust and have the pH of 5.5 to 6.5.
So you are saying even if I were to apply a truckload of fertilizer, but with the wrong pH, I'll be wasting money.
Yes, you'll be wasting your money.
Okay. So how then do I correct pH? You mentioned low pH, high pH. Are there any corrective measures?
Okay, so when it comes to low pH, that is pH below 5.5, the corrective measure is lime. And when it comes to lime, we have two types of lime. We have calcitic and dolomitic lime. And it's important to note that most soils in Zimbabwe, they are acidic. So farmers should get their soils tested and know which pH level they are at. And not just get their soil tested for pH, because when it comes to the different types of lime, what would determine the type of lime that we're going to apply is also the amount of calcium and magnesium, because these two, they act antagonistically. When one of the elements is more in the soil, it will actually inhibit the uptake of the other. So if you get your soil pH, yes, it's important, but you should also know your calcium and your magnesium levels so that you know either am I going to be applying calcitic lime or am I going to be applying dolomitic lime. Calcitic lime having more of the calcium carbonate and dolomitic lime having more of the magnesium carbonate.
What are the misconceptions? A lot of information there is going around in the WhatsApp groups. Some say there are homemade solutions to test your soil. What are some other misconceptions that you have heard from the farmers?
Okay, most farmers, they think that having your soils analyzed, it's expensive. People are trying to steal money from us. We can just go and buy fertilizer and apply and we'll get the results. Yes, you might get results, but that is maybe you are not getting the yield that you would have gotten if you had your soils tested. It's not even expensive to get your soils tested, because the moment you know how much in the soil, you know that maybe I'm applying less of this and more of this, and that saves you money. And it's also important to know that farmers should not be afraid to get their soils tested, because some people say takabvira kare tichirima taisambo apply ma fertilizer. But we have realized that the more you are putting your crops on the ground, you'll be harvesting the nutrients. So maybe back then it was able to give you the yield because it was still fertile. But because you are harvesting nutrients away, it means your soil is no longer able to give you the nutrients that it was giving you back then. So it's important that you have your soils tested and we give you the recommendations, which type of fertilizers to use, because soil is changing time and again. You are coming in with different like practical methods, like management practices that you are doing on the farm. So it means there is a lot that you are adding in or a lot that you are subtracting. So farmers should not just say, I've been doing this, so there's no need for me to have my soils tested. It's important to know what you are dealing with and how to address it.
And another question that I have is to do with the contribution of soil testing to sustainable farming.
Okay, I think from the start we've been talking about sustainability, because the importance of soil testing itself, we said you can either over apply or under apply. So when you do over application, we are talking there are microorganisms in the soil that can be affected by over application of fertilizers. The issue of groundwater, like nutrients leaching into groundwater pollution, issues of runoff. So it's important that when farmers get their soils tested, they are told the right amount of fertilizers in the right time to apply it, so that the fertilizer is taken up by the crop or it is used at the time that is supposed to be used. So overall, soil testing actually supports sustainable agriculture, because you are knowing what I'm putting to the soil without harming what is in the soil.
How often do we test our soil?
Okay, so the general recommendation, we say 2 to 3 years. That's the time that you need to get your soils tested. But there is no harm in getting your soils tested frequently, depending on the type of crops that you're growing, especially for horticultural farmers. When you see maybe they are having challenges, you are following your fertilizer recommendations and everything, and maybe you are seeing more of deficiencies, it's important to have your soils tested and know what needs to be adjusted. So yes, 2 to 3 years is the general recommendation, but you can do it frequently. Even in a year's time, you can have your soils tested now and again, because like if you apply your nitrogenous fertilizers, there's an effect of them lowering your pH. So if you said, okay, I tested my soils 2 years ago and the pH was like so, it might not be a true representation, because you're actually adding something that's lowering the pH. So yes, 2 to 3 years is just the general recommendation. If you see like your crops are still performing fine, but you can do it frequently, there's no harm in it.
Farmers, here we are having a discussion with Felistas Mukuluchi from the ZFC. Felistas, another question. I need to take you back to pH. You mentioned, you gave us corrective measures for pH, and those will come with an analysis report, yes. When is the right time to apply bit calcium? Is it when I'm ready to plant, when my soil is ready to plant, or I do it earlier or later after planting? When is the right time?
Thank you, Rollins, for that question. So what happens when it comes to lime application? We recommend that you do it three months prior to planting, and especially immediately after you have harvested. Maybe we say April, May. That's when you get your soils tested for pH, and you come in with your lime application. You spread it in, like broadcast it in the fields, and you incorporate it through disking. Why? Because it has to take time to react so that it can give you higher pH. And on that note, I think I had not highlighted the issues of maybe in case you have a pH that is higher than 6.5. There are some cases that you have those issues. So it's important when farmers see that their pH is higher than 6.5, that is, it's more on the alkaline side. The remedies that they come with, you come with your elemental sulfur or your aluminium sulfate. But also it's important to know that ammonium containing fertilizers also lower pH. So depending on your case, if your pH is super high, that's when we recommend things like elemental sulfur and aluminium sulfate. And then if it's not really high, maybe if it's 6.8, closer to 6.5, would just say if you're going to be applying ammonium containing fertilizers, you apply them. And that's the case where maybe it applies for you to have your pH tested quite frequently to see the changes that are going through in your soil.
Earlier on, you mentioned about areas that we need to avoid when collecting samples.
Yes.
How does this impact our soil analysis results?
Okay, when someone collects maybe a place like your NTU, or maybe where they frequently mix their fertilizers or their manure, it means that that area is nutrient rich. So there will be a bias on your results. From our lab, we report that your soil is nutritious. You have everything that is needed by your crop, and then we give you recommendations according to the results that we would have found. But those recommendations will not match what is in the field. So it's important to have a true representation of maybe the majority of your area, because maybe you might have an area that has an NTU which is like really small. But if the area is extensive, now you can treat it as a separate sampling point, and you can maybe have sample A and sample B. You know that, okay, this area it has an NTU and it's quite big, so I'm testing it. I'm actually collecting samples differently so that I get the results for this area and I get results for the other area, so that you have different recommendations for those areas.
We are living in an era of technology.
Yes.
And are there any technological advancements when it comes to soil testing and analysis?
Yes, Mr. Rollins, there are technological advancements, like we have on-farm testing kits where people they just come to your farm and have your soils analyzed and you have your results. But it is important to note that some elements, you cannot have those. Yes, for pH, you can have your pH tested and you get the results, but it's important just to be aware of which elements you're getting the results there and there, because there are a lot of people, right, like out there, who can tell you can have your results in one day, but you'll not be having your true results. So it's just important to know whom you are dealing with and the kind of results that you are getting. But we have on-farm test kits. We also have the use of drones in the soil testing environment, and maybe some inference methods that are coming through just to make the process shorter, so that even if a farmer comes and they are doing things hurriedly, they can have their results maybe looking at what we have been doing, and we can infer if a customer has a pH like this and maybe the initial nitrogen is like this, maybe their incubated nitrogen we have such an amount. So those are some of the things that are happening in the industry of soil testing.
We have new farmers that are listening to this podcast. What would be your advice to those that are considering crop production?
Okay, I think if they were following from the start, they have seen like all the advantages of soil testing, and one of them, because agriculture is a business, is you save your money. Like, I'm going to be applying 20 kgs or 50 kgs of a certain nutrient. So I need such bags of a certain fertilizer. So it's important that the farmers will save money. They will have their desired yield, because you're not just going blindly into the field and applying fertilizers, but you know definitely that if I put this, it is going to work, because I know what I'm dealing with.
Another question that I have, actually the last question, is where can farmers get their soil tested, and how long does it take to get results?
Okay, depending on what farmers need, we do pH testing at ZFC Limited. We also do what we call a basic or full analysis. That one will include your pH. It will include your primary nutrients, that is your nitrogen, phosphorus, and your potash. It will include your secondary elements. It will also include trace elements. And then we have the premium. The basic is just, I think, 2 trace elements. And then when it comes to the premium analysis, it has all the other ones that I've mentioned for basic analysis, but it has more of your trace elements, focusing on manganese, copper, iron. So we are located at 35 Coventry Road, Workington, Harare. You can bring your samples there, or you can get in touch with our ZFC agronomists. They will assist you with the process that you need to have your soils tested with us.
Thanks, Felistas, for sharing your expertise with our farmers. Farmers, there you have it. We had Felistas Mukuluchi from the ZFC, and she shared with us insights and expertise on the importance of soil testing and analysis. We do hope that you have benefited from this podcast. If you do have any questions for her, please do type in the comment section below. From us at Agribusiness Media, I'm Ron.
Have you heard the news? We've got a podcast that's just for you. Agribusiness talk, it's here to stay. Listen up, we've got so much to say. Let's talk strategy and all things agree. We'll share tips and tricks you'll see, from planting seeds to harvesting crops. Our guests will guide you, they won't stop. Together we'll learn, together we'll grow. Agribusiness talk, come on, let's go. Join us on this journey as we explore the ins and outs of farming. Let's open the door.